welcome to day 4 of the Bluefishjobs Virtual Career Development Week. My name is Mitchell Plummer. I am the Assistant Director of Student Involvement of Recreation at Presbyterian College in South Carolina, and I'm a member of the 2020 Career Services Center Committee. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. Please remain on mute and do not share your screen. If you have questions for the presenters, please enter them in the chat box. If you have technical questions, please send a direct message to Nurse's Smartboard. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the presenters of today. We have Jessica Ward, Director of Campus Recreation at Princeton University, with Jenna Mayer, Nora Osei, and Maria Lauron-Ramos. Ladies, take it away.
Thank you, Mitchell. Hi, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. It's nice to see some familiar faces, so this is exciting. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to try to open up here and share my screen so we can get the presentation started. Here we go. Sorry, I'm new to the technology thing. I'm learning. Not where we want to be. So I'm so sorry. All right. So thank you guys for joining us with our presentation today. True Life, it's my turn to be a professional. I'm excited to be doing this session with all of you because there's always a lot of questions that come up as a first year professional, you know, in terms of getting ready and what this transition looks like. So if you're here, it's probably because you're either a student who is getting ready to start your career path in collegiate rec, or you are currently a young professional who has a lot of these questions and are looking just for different ways to adapt to this new role that you're in. So I want to talk a little bit about the format of what we're going to do today before we get into introductions. So you're going to hear from 3 young professionals at Princeton University, part of my staff, who I love. They've all been hired within the last 18 months, and they're going to share their journey with you and lessons that they learned a little bit along the way. And then you're also going to hear a little bit from me and how I've adapted with each hire on how to onboard them and get them ready for their role with us. So what I first want to talk about before we get into introduction is I really want to just stress this part right here about your path matters. And this is really important to this whole presentation for the next 30 minutes because everybody's path is completely different. And there really is not a right way of going from being a student to a professional. And everybody has a unique way of how they get there. And the whole point of today is just really for us to share experience, talk a little bit about how we have felt, and particularly Nora, Maria, and Jenna talk about how they have felt and things that they've dealt with as they've transitioned into those new roles. So you can kind of see if there's, you know, lessons that you can learn as you begin this for your path. But it's really more about, you know, you getting prepared for your path. So let's go right into introductions. This is, again, my name is Jessica Ward. As Mitchell had said, I am the Director of Campus Recreation at Princeton University. There's a little bit of information about myself. I graduated from undergrad at Rutgers University with a degree in environmental policy. I went to graduate school at Indiana State University where I had a graduate assistantship in intramurals. I started my career path in Parks and Rec where I had the opportunity to work with group fitness, youth programs, camp, and aquatics. I did that for about 2 years, and then I was able to start my collegiate rec professional path, which I was super excited about at Rutgers University. I was there for 4.5 years, where I had the opportunity to oversee facilities, fitness, and aquatics. And then for the past 12 years, I've been at Princeton University. I started off there as the Assistant Director of Programming, overseeing intramural events, group fitness, and summer camp. And for the last 3 years, I've had the opportunity to serve as their director. So that's just a little bit about my journey, just so you can see a little bit about my path, but we're really going to focus today on my 3 young professionals. So we're going to let Jenna go first.
All right. Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. My name is Jenna Mayer, and I'm currently the Dillon Gym Building Supervisor at Princeton, and I've been in this role as a professional for about 1.5 years. I received my undergraduate degree at York College of Pennsylvania in sport management with minors in Spanish and business administration, graduated in May 2018. I am currently pursuing my master's in sport and exercise science at the University of Northern Colorado online. I will be graduating this December, so I'm super excited to add that to my repertoire. While I was an undergrad, I had a lot of hands-on experience, whether it was working on campus or during internships. In my junior year, I was a marketing intern with our physical education department, as well as an event staff intern at the Baltimore Ravens. My last internship in my final semester of college was a ballpark operations internship with the Baltimore Orioles. So I never really worked directly in campus recreation. Quite frankly, I didn't know what campus recreation was until I came to Princeton. I was always set on working in pro sports, so it's been quite a jump and something I never thought I'd be in for sure. I'm going to pass this on to Nora now.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Nora, Osei, and I'm the coordinator for rugby and summer camp. So I'm from what some people, I guess, up here say the South. I'm from Virginia. And so in undergrad, I went to a small private school called Eastern Mennonite University in Virginia. And I was a two-sport varsity athlete where I played basketball and soccer. So I didn't know too much about the campus rec world. I studied computer science, and then after I graduated, I realized, you know what, I don't think I want to sit behind a desk all day and talk to a computer. So I decided, while I was trying to figure out my career path, I decided to work as an admissions counselor at EMU. And I did that for a year. And then I learned about the graduate assistant position at James Madison University, which was also in Harrisonburg, where EMU was. So I started that position, and I was the grad assistant for sport clubs and youth programs. So I had an amazing experience there. And then I moved up north afterwards in 2018, and I worked at Rutgers University as the sport club coordinator, and I also helped to oversee summer camp. And I did that for 15 months, and then I transitioned over to Princeton University. So took a year off, I guess you could say, before I started in the grad assistant position, and I'm super excited I'm in campus recreation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Lauron-Ramos, and I'm the coordinator of campus rec, marketing, and staff development here at Princeton. For my career path, this isn't what I thought I would be doing or where I would be. I was originally an athletic training major, and I eventually switched my junior year to sport management because I didn't want to be in the medical field anymore. I didn't work in campus recreation either in undergrad. I did alumni relations and development and had a lot of experience in professional sports internships. It wasn't until the graduate director reached out to me about an opportunity to be a graduate assistant in campus rec at the University of the Pacific. And that's where I both completed my bachelor's and master's degree. So I ended up getting the job. And so I was a GA for marketing for 2 years. And when it came to looking for a job, I wanted to stay in the West Coast. I was born and raised in Stockton, and I didn't want to leave that side of the country at all. So without having a job lined up for me after graduation, it was very difficult for me. And so when this position opened up, I decided to kind of like just go for it. And I ended up getting hired at the end of September, and I moved 1 week before my start date. And so I've been at Princeton for 6 months, and it's been a great opportunity for me since then.
Great, thank you guys for sharing. So what we're going to do today is we're going to lead this as more of a panel discussion. So we have I have some questions that I'm going to ask all three of my staff to answer, for them to share a little bit about, again, their path and their journey to where they are today. So the first question that topic we're going to talk about is preparation. So my question for the ladies is, how did you prepare for your transition from a student to a professional role? I'm going to have Jenna, you can answer that first. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, my last semester at college, I was working an internship, and this was basically full-time. So quite frankly, my preparation from going to student to professional, I didn't really have much time to prepare. It kind of just hit really quick when I started working full-time, commuting every day, an hour each way, and working overtime. It just really hit quick and lit a fire under me, where I realized that I had to move out of this student space that I had going on in my head and in my personality, and kind of move on to becoming a professional. I wasn't necessarily there yet, but it was definitely a good kick in the right direction and took me out of that student space. So in the brief time I had before accepting this Princeton position and completing my internship in May, I really just tried to keep my schedule consistent, and that helped me prepare for my time here. I set work times for myself to do some networking, resume building, and kind of job hunting. And these kind of scheduled formal times for myself really helped me stay on schedule and realize that I'm not a student anymore and I got to try to transition over.
Thank you. Maria, same question.
So during my second year of my graduate assistantship, I tried to be more intentional about what I wanted to do to prepare. So I had asked to attend the regional and annual conferences for NERSA so I can continue to network. However, I knew that there was going to be more to it in stepping up to be an administrative position. So I asked to meet with the professional staff at my job to help me with certain topics such as budgeting, membership services, and actually helping me build my resume. And then I also reached out to other professional staff in NERSA to give me some tips and recommendations on what could be helpful on skills that departments would be looking for. And if you don't have the time, or like if you don't have a job by the time you graduate, just take that time to kind of like work on your skills. And that's kind of like what I did until I got hired.
Thank you. Nora, how did you prepare?
I had a similar experience to Maria in that the preparation really happened during that second year of my graduate assistant position, because once you start your professional role, there's not really a time to prepare for it. I guess you just hit the ground running. So a lot of the preparation did take place in that second year, and I think it's all about being intentional. So being intentional about seeking out mentors, being intentional about networking, being intentional about going to conferences. So that was how I prepared for my professional experience. I was just intentional with it.
That's great, thank you. All right, Norris, get ready, you're next. So our next topic is for each person to talk about a challenge. So what's one challenge you would like to share that you were faced with as a new professional in your role? So Nora, you're up first.
One challenge for me is I've realized just because something worked well at your old institution, it doesn't mean it's going to have the same impact at your new institution. And I learned that it's important to be open to new ideas because every school has its own culture. So again, what might have worked really, really well at your last school, you take that to a brand new culture and maybe the students aren't going to be reciprocal to that. So that was a challenge that I learned and I overcame, and I just had to be more open-minded and talk to the student staff because the students are the ones that really make up the culture of the school. And so I just picked their brain a lot and see what they wanted, not what worked best at my old institution.
That's great, thank you. All right, Jenna, how about you?
I think one of my biggest challenges was navigating a lot of different personalities at once. Our department is so interrelated and all of the pieces work together for us to create the campus recreation as a whole. And as a student among other students, even in my internships, I worked with other students, it always felt like an underlying kind of informality there. So when you have an issue with another student, it almost can be dealt with informally, or even if you don't want to talk to another student, it kind of feels like you can just blow it off. But once you're in a professional setting, everything's formal and everything needs to be intentional. You need to make sure that you're trying to make it work with everybody because these are the people you work with and these are the people you want to build relationships with. So navigating different personalities and adapting your own personality to make sure that you can all collaborate in a way that's going to be productive for everybody was definitely one of my biggest challenges. It's taken a lot of advice from my boss and asking for guidance and just taking the time to intentionally adjust and work with other people with different dispositions.
Thank you, Jenna. All right, Maria, how about you? What challenge do you want to share?
For me, there was a lot going on when I first started at Princeton. This also included first for the rec department, with my position being new. Even though I was a GA for 2 years, I found myself struggling trying to find my place because of like the culture shift. I didn't understand yet the balance between learning the department culture and then when to finally like step up and do my job. So I was struggling to rely on a professional staff member to tell me what to do and when to do it. And that's when it kind of clicked for me that I was a professional staff. 2 months in, I finally asked to meet with the administrative team to see what they wanted or what they needed actually from me to help for marketing. And this gave me the confidence to know what I could and should do going forward. And eventually everything will fall into place when the time comes.
Great, thank you. All right, so Maria, get ready. So next topic is transferable skills. So what transferable skills did you learn as a student that you're able to use in your professional role? And I want each of you guys to answer this, but Maria, you're up first.
One thing that I relied on specifically was my ability to understand different individuals. And because I took over seeing the marketing student staff, I tried to show my understanding of being a recent graduate to build rapport with them. I did feel lost and confused, but using those interpersonal skills to build individual relationships resulted in not only making connections with the students, but also helped me understand the culture of the school better and even learned how to do my job. Another skill that I use till this day is adaptability. I think that flexibility is really important, especially trying to get things done. So I found this being really useful, especially during this time period during COVID-19. You have to be willing to help in any way that you can.
Thank you. All right, Nora, you're next. What about you?
So there's a lot of skills that transferred to me when I'm in my professional role, but I think one of the big ones for me was actively listening, specifically actively listening to students. So as a graduate assistant, I would meet often with students weekly and would take time to talk to them, not just about work, but about life. Like I wanted them to know that I cared about them as a whole and not just what they did for me or what they did at the rec center. So I remember that my supervisors at JMU, they did the same thing for me, and they really took the time to get to know me, and it helped me to feel cared about and flourish in my position. So now as a professional, I really try to foster that sense of care and community with the students by being intentional about connecting with them about all facets of their life, and actively listening to them. And some other transferable skills that's helped me in my professional role is being flexible, because there's always a lot of change that's going on. So just learning how to be, roll with the punches, as one may say. And then another thing is time management. I think sometimes as a student, it's like you might roll up into class late, maybe even as a grad assistant, sometimes you might roll into a meeting late, but when you do that, it shows a lack of respect. And so one of the transferable skills I've really learned is being able to be on time to show the people that, hey, like I respect your time.
Great, thank you. All right, Jenna, how about you? What did you learn?
I find that a lot of the transferable skills between being a student and being a professional have come from my experiences and going out into the world and doing things for my major and learning new technical skills during internships. So I think one of my biggest transferable skills has been networking. It was something when I was an undergrad that they beat into us and had mandatory networking events and roundtables that we had to go to, dress up, and we had to participate. So I was forced out of my bubble of feeling like I just kind of wanted to stay comfortable and know the people that I knew. But it soon grew into something that I love, and it's one of my favorite aspects about going out and meeting new professionals. It's something that'll always come in handy, and it can help you in your current role. It can help you get a new role. It can help you move up in your institution, anything really. A couple others have to do with things that can't really be taught. So having energy and being punctual, like Nora was saying, a lot of these skills you just can't teach. So when you have them, you just got to use them.
Thank you. All right, next question. So now what is something that no one talks about that you wish people told you when you transition from being from a student into a professional? There's always something that as you start your job, you're like, wow, I really wish somebody had given me advice on this before. So Maria, how about you go first?
Yeah, I learned that you don't automatically just become a professional overnight. And you don't know when that will happen or how it will happen. For me personally, I was really just frustrated not understanding the culture and realizing that the things that I learned and was doing just wasn't fitting for Princeton. So after one night just talking to a mentor and friend back at home, I kind of finally told myself that, like, Maria, you're not a student anymore. Like, everyone else has responsibilities. They don't have time to tell you what to do and when to do it. So it's sort of your time to step up and just speak up for yourself. From then, I mean, there's always pressure on you young professionals, and it's really just being patient and willing to learn from others. And not being afraid to ask questions. You don't just have to go to your supervisor or people even within the department. You can also go outside to like campus life units as well.
Great, thank you. All right, Nora, you're up.
Nobody told me I was gonna make so many mistakes. I didn't realize I was gonna make so many mistakes, and I didn't realize that it was gonna be okay. At first I was shook because I was like, oh no, I'm making this mistake, I'm making that mistake. But you know, then someone told me one time that in your first 365 days in your position, that's not your year one. That's really your year zero. And your year zero is a learning curve. And that's when you ask questions, and then you implement what you've learned, and then you apply it, and you just repeat it. So you ask questions, you learn, you apply what you learn, and you just kind of repeat it over and over again. And that is something that I didn't realize that learning curve was going to be so steep, and it was going to take a while. But you know, we all get through it.
No, they're not mistakes. They're all learning opportunities.
There we go.
All right, Jenna, how about you?
I wish somebody would have told me that the job you apply for will most likely change. The rules and the responsibilities that you read in that job description and thought this fits me perfectly will probably change. So it's okay to grow your role and expand your role to take on new responsibilities or to take on completely different responsibilities. I'm always trying to take some stuff off of my boss's plate or take stuff off of other people's plates where I feel like I can help and it will help me grow professionally. So by asking for different work or doing different work that may not have necessarily been the upfront description of your job is okay. You might just grow into your role into something that you never thought you'd love. Like, I was always gunning for professional sports, and by adapting and working with the students and trying to be more involved in the hiring process, for instance, which was never in my original role, I found out that I really love it, and it's something that I want to keep doing and something I know I can grow into in the future.
Oh, that's great. I love that, Jenna. Thank you. All right, so for my last question for you girls, you know, our job in collegiate rec is students first. You know, our job is to you know, serve our campus and serve our students first. So this next topic is about engagement and mentorship. So this is a two-part question. How do you stay engaged when your level of mentorship has changed? You know, as a student, you probably received a lot of mentoring by others. Now that level of mentorship has changed. And then how have you adapted to the switch that now you are the mentor? So Jenna, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. I really try to stay engaged by staying busy. And that's not just creating busy work for myself. It's finding things that need to be done and then finding things that can lead to in turn that need to change. So if I need to do A, it'll probably lead me to have B, C, and D as well as extra work that I can be doing. I find that remembering that everybody in the department has one common goal really also helps me stay engaged. We're all different pieces to the same puzzle. And when we come together, we're going to be even stronger. I've gone from not only being a student to a professional but from being a student to overseeing a student staff of 60 plus students that are my age. We're almost all the same age, if not within a couple years of each other. So it's kind of odd to be their boss or be somebody that they have to look up to and somebody else to tell them what to do sometimes. So knowing that this is a learning experience and that I'm going to get older and they're going to stay the same age, so this age gap will go up. I just need to develop my managerial style and kind of fine tune it to fit myself and fit everybody around me.
Great. All right, Nora, you're up.
So for those of you who've played sports, you understand the power of the mind, right? So the physical change often starts at the mental level. And so I believe that the switch from being a mentee to a mentor is also mental. When I was at JMU, there was a professional staff that whenever people thanked him for doing something, he'd always be like, hey, I'm here for you. And it just, he was notorious for saying that, and it made it show that he really welcomed people coming to ask him for help. And he was always willing to answer questions. And I believe that's the mindset of a mentor, always willing to help how they can. And so since then, I've tried to adapt that mindset and always letting students know whatever they need, hey, I'm here for you. And in terms of engagement, I enjoy going to conferences and continue building my NERSA network. I also, even though now I take on more of the mentor relationship, I also have people that I look to as mentors. And so I think just having, being in the middle of that just makes the whole engagement piece work out a little better.
Great, thank you. All right, Maria, let's hear your answer.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to have full supervision over my previous marketing team. And so one of the things they pointed out was how relatable and understanding I was as their supervisor. So becoming a full-time professional, I just took those 2 points to stay engaged with the students here at Princeton, whether they were my students or even worked in other different departments. I found myself trying to build relationships with all of them. I've always been a mentor to people who I worked with, or even people who were just my friends. I find that the mentor and mentee relationship is more of a reciprocal experience where you learn from one another. And I think that's something that not many people talk about. And I really do value those relationships. I think the last point for me is to not forget to take care of yourself first. You need to do that in order for you to be available to support and guide students when they really need you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for your answers. I thought that was great. The last bullet point here, and I'm trying to be mindful of time, so I'm not going to talk too long, is just with, the last 18 months, we've had several hires in our department, and it's been really interesting from my perspective of just getting them on board and how I've also learned with each hire how to do things a little differently. I kind of would, after somebody was hired, be like, okay, what do you wish I would have done for you that I could do for the next person? Just so that we can always make it smoother and a better transition for that person. But I think for me, what's really important is that, I want to make sure that the new hire is comfortable in their role and that they understand their role really well before I get them involved with other things, get them really comfortable with campus and our culture, because Princeton and every campus is unique. So you need to be comfortable with that campus culture. It's very easy as a young professional to constantly compare your job to what you did prior, to what you did at other institutions, to what you did as a grad student, as an undergrad. Everybody does it. We all do it in our first few roles, as we just constantly compare to what we know and what we're comfortable with. And it takes some time to get used to that new institution. So I try to do as much as I can to get my staff acclimated to Princeton, and just make sure that they also know that they can always come to me and ask me questions. I have to remind them that they need to be their own advocate and ask the questions, because a lot of times they will forget and think that, I'm always going to, or their supervisor is going to go to them and constantly do the check-ins. It's no, you're now the professional. You have to be an advocate for yourself and ask the questions when you need help is really important. So those are just some of the quick lessons that I've kind of learned along the way, and I'm going to keep learning every day as we go through this, because that's what we do. So right now, we're going to open it up, and I have Jenna, Nora, and Maria are monitoring the chat. I don't know if there's any questions so far. If you guys have any questions for us, I can't see the chat box with the shared screen. So are there any questions in there? Thumbs up, no? I'll wait a little and see if anybody types in.
Not yet. Tom put a great piece of advice in, and he said a friendly piece of advice to the students/GAs on this call: your onboarding is ultimately your responsibility. It's your job. So I thought that was really great feedback. Thanks, Tom.
That is great feedback, because I don't know if we ever really explain that to our students as they get into their new roles. So that's really a really good piece of advice too.
And Juliana asks, what was something that pleasantly surprised you when you started your role at Princeton?
Who wants to answer?
I can speak on that. For me, it was learning how to basically, for their culture, I wasn't used to students being limited in their time of work. They prioritize their studies and also extracurricular activities. And so for marketing specifically, I was used to working with students who would be willing to work 10 to 12 hours. And then to Princeton, it went to 1 to 2. So I've been kind of struggling, trying to figure out how that would work out in the future. And actually my first day starting.
Jess, we have another question from Liz. It says, do you have any helpful tips for the first few months in a professional role besides asking questions?
I think my biggest piece of advice is to also talk to the students and get to know your students really well, and not try to, when you first get into your role, policy or change at them because you're bringing something from another campus. Listen to them and learn from them as much as you can, because again, they're part of the campus culture, so they're going to kind of help and guide you into getting acclimated to campus. And then the better relationship you build with them, the stronger that the more comfortable you'll be in your role, and you'll understand what you need to do. And as you build that trust with those students, you'll be able to start to implement change and do some really fun things with it. But a lot of times, young professionals will come into a role right away, and it's exciting. They have passion. They're ready to go, and they want to make a lot of change, but you have to ease into it, because you have to have buy-in. And if you don't have the buy-in from your coworkers and from students, it's just not going to happen. So you need to, build that trust first with the people around you before you try to charge the gates.
Then I'll just add on to that. Another thing real quick is there's definitely when you start a professional role, there's of course the work aspect of it. But I think there's also the social piece to it. So I would recommend just trying to get as involved as you can on campus. If there's little lunch and learns, go to that, try to meet new people, because you're going to feel more connected in the community when you're walking around or going to different events, and you can call people by name. Oh, hey, Maria. Oh, hey, Jenna. And it's like, oh, I know that person from this department or that department. And it's going to help collaboration a lot as well. We have
one more question, Nora, just because of time, and then we'll give our contact info.
Okay, awesome. There's one more question from Tim Puntavon, and he asked, how do you all define success?
Okay, well, I'll go. I define success as if I'm happy. If I'm happy in my role and I'm content, and I can see that my people are happy and are thriving, then that's successful for me, because my job at the end of the day as the director is to make sure that my staff and my students are in a very positive and just happy environment. Like, that's the best way to put it. I mean, work and recreation, like, our job shouldn't be that difficult. So for me, that's how I determine success, is if everybody is feeling really good about where they are and what they're doing, then I'm doing my job really well. What about you guys? Anybody?
I think defining success, whether it's in your professional life or even your personal life, is making sure you're happy and making sure when you get up every day, you feel like you're doing something fulfilling for your mind, for your body, for your soul. And if that's going to work, that's a great thing to have on your plate. It's great to think that your role makes you feel successful. And if it doesn't, I think it's easy for you to go out and try to find things that make you feel fulfilled. And by finding things that you like or things that make you feel this certain way, you can kind of adapt that to say, okay, how can I be successful in doing this aspect of my life? And if it's your professional role where you're looking for more success, don't be afraid to branch out and try to find success in other facets of your life.
I'll say some how I define success. In short, it's if the people around me are good, then I feel like I'm doing something right. So whether that's, my student staff, hey, if they're good and they're happy, then I'm happy. If it's my coworkers, if they're good and happy, I'm happy. Even taking it to personal life, hey, like mom's good, sister's good, all right, cool. Then like I feel like I'm doing something right, and that's what makes me feel successful.
I'll go piggyback off that. Success for me, like Nora, is like people around me. I kind of forget the self part. It's not about numbers all the time, like for marketing and whatnot. It's really seeing like the students, especially the students you work with or interact with, and seeing how they started and grown. For me, that's what success is, especially in higher ed and campus rec.
Well, I want to just, again, be really mindful of time. So I have up here our last bit of advice for everyone. So if Jen, I'll let each of them describe their last words of advice, and then our last slide will have our contact info. So Jenna, you want to share yours?
Yeah, I think my last piece of advice is don't get too complacent. There's always new skills you can learn. There's always more interesting people you can meet. And there's always experiences that you can take advantage of. Like I said earlier, I'm a huge advocate for networking now that it's been programmed into me, but it really comes in handy. It'll help you in your personal life and it'll help you in your professional life.
Nora, what about you?
Anything you do in life, transitions, they're tough. But I'm here to tell you that you can do it. We all go through transitions. But again, we make it through, and oftentimes we transition to something better. So keep that in mind when you're going through the transition and it feels a little rocky. Just know that it's worth it.
Thank you. Maria?
You may not have everything figured out, even as a professional, and that's okay. Know what keeps you grounded and speak to your support system. I mean, that's what worked for me, especially moving across the country. The journey will be challenging, and just trust the process.
Great, thank you. And again, mine is again about just the campus culture and learning and understanding it. I know myself personally, when I went to grad school, I think the director there, John Lentz, probably got sick of hearing about Rutgers University and what we did for intramurals at Rutgers University, because that's all I talked about, because that's all I knew. And that was where I was comfortable. But the moment I flipped that switch in my head and decided to buy in and learn and just dive into Indiana State, that was the moment that my grad assistantship changed. And it was the same thing when I went to Parks and Rec for my first full-time job. The moment I embraced where I was able to learn so much more, and I was able to grow as a professional. I was able to adapt to so many different things. And that's where really, it's so corny to say this, but that's where the magic happens in your development. It's the moment you decide that you're going to literally open up your mind and have a growth-minded approach and learn about where you are, as opposed to constantly comparing it to where you've been, because that's the only way you'll move forward. So that's my biggest piece of advice. I really appreciate all of you for joining us today. I know times right now are a little crazy. There's a lot going on. This is our contact information. Please, if you have questions, and it doesn't even have to pertain to this presentation, it can be in regards to our roles, what we're doing on campus, what we're doing right now, dealing with COVID-19. It can be about just NERSA in general. I've been very involved in NERSA my entire career. So if you have questions in regards to NERSA, I'm happy to help there as well. But all of us are here for you. So if you can email us, at any time. And, you know, I just want to, again, thank you very much for joining us today. So, thank you.